I bought my dream home in silence. No one knew, not my parents, not my brother, not the people who used to laugh when I said I'd own a place one day. I wanted to feel what it was like to win without an audience waiting to downplay it. The papers were signed on a rainy Thursday. The agent shook my hand and said, "Congratulations, Frank, it's all yours." I didn't smile. I was too numb. Years of grinding, saving, skipping meals just to see this one line on paper, and owner, Frank Delarose. For the first time, I drove through Cedar Lake Hills, the neighborhood I'd dreamed of, where every mailbox gleamed and every porch light whispered quiet success. At the end of the lane, my new house stood tall, white stone walls climbing with ivy, glass windows catching the late sunlight like something sacred. I parked, stepped out, and for a few seconds I just stood there breathing. The air smelled of pine and wet soil. The gravel crunched beneath my shoes like a sound of closure. I ran my hand along the iron gate and whispered, "You're mine." That's when my phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. I hesitated, then answered. "Frank?" A voice, male, tense, uncertain. "It's your neighbor across the street. You might want to check your cameras. There are people inside your house." My fingers froze around the phone. "What?" He spoke quickly, voice tight. "Strangers. They've been there all evening. Music, balloons, a car in your driveway. Thought maybe you rented it out or something." My breath hitched. I hadn't told a soul I bought this house. I'd barely told myself. "Hold on," I muttered, opening the app for the security system. The feed took a second to load. Then the screen flickered, and my chest went cold. Laughter, wine glasses, kids running across the hardwood I hadn't even stepped on, streamers hanging from the ceiling fans, my brand new kitchen cluttered with plates I didn't own. And at the center of it all, a man raising his glass like he ruled the place. My brother, Logan. Behind him, his wife leaned on the counter, swirling wine like she'd poured it for herself. Their kids tore through the living room with sparklers in hand, shouting, "Our new house!" My stomach twisted. My name was on that deed. My sweat built those walls. My silence paid for every brick. And yet there they were, celebrating as if I didn't exist. For a long minute, I couldn't move. The phone shook in my hand. My heart hammered loud enough to drown the laughter coming from the speakers. Every sacrifice flashed before me. Nights spent eating instant noodles, walking to work in winter because I'd sold my car, listening to my father say, "Be more like your brother." And now the golden boy had found one more thing of mine to claim. I stared at the screen until my reflection blurred with theirs. And somewhere between disbelief and rage, a thought formed, cold and final. Not this time. Frank's thumb trembled above the call icon. He could dial the police and end it in seconds. Trespassing, break-in, easy case. But a different kind of silence filled him, one older than this house. The silence of years spent being told to let it go. The silence after every time Logan took what wasn't his, and their parents called it sharing. He lowered the phone slowly. He wasn't calling anyone, not yet. He wanted to see. Frank got back in his truck and parked halfway down the road. The sky had turned gray, and rain drizzled against the windshield in uneven streaks. Across the street, his house glowed with warm light and laughter. He watched through the glass as figures moved inside, shadows, flickering across the curtains, outlines of balloons bobbing in the air. His phone buzzed again. A message from his neighbor. They said it's a family party. "Thought you were coming later." Family party. Frank's jaw tightened. He zoomed the security feed. There it was. A banner stretched across his living room wall. "Welcome home, Logan." It felt like a punch to the gut. He watched as his brother clinked glasses with their parents. The same people who once told Frank he wasn't ready for responsibility. His mother looked around the room with pride, saying something he couldn't hear. His father stood near the staircase, laughing, wine in hand. Frank leaned forward, breath fogging the glass. "You think this is yours?" he whispered, voice breaking. "You really think it's yours?" He turned off the engine, the sound of rain taking over. For a long moment he just sat there, staring through the blur of water, the glow of his house shining like something stolen out of his own dream. Every memory of Logan came flooding back. The job opportunity he stole, the girlfriend he charmed away, the idea he presented at a meeting that earned him a promotion Frank had worked for. And every time their parents' words had been the same. "Logan just gets things done, Frank. You should be proud of him." He pressed his palm against the steering wheel, the leather cold and damp under his hand. His pulse throbbed in his neck. He could walk away, again. Pretend he didn't care. Pretend this didn't burn. But this house wasn't a car or a girl or a project. It was proof. Proof that Frank had survived on his own terms. That every scar had built something real. His phone buzzed again, a new message. From his brother. You finally coming? Mom and Dad wanted to surprise you, man. Thought you wouldn't mind we started celebrating early. You'll love what we've done with the place. Frank stared at the message until the words blurred. Surprise. They'd turned his dream into a stage for their own performance. He looked back at the glowing windows, and a cold decision settled in his chest. He stepped out of the truck, rain soaking through his jacket, his shoes crunching against the wet gravel. Every step toward the gate felt heavier. The laughter grew louder. The smell of barbecue drifted into the air. His heart pounded harder with every footstep. By the time he reached the iron gate, he wasn't trembling anymore. He was calm, too calm. He gripped the bars, eyes fixed on the front door that should have been locked, but wasn't. The key was still in his pocket, untouched. He pushed the gate open. It creaked, loud enough that someone inside might have heard, but no one came. Frank crossed the yard, every breath a mix of rage and heartbreak. The porch light flickered. Inside, he could hear his brother's voice. The same tone he'd used all his life when showing off. Something that never belonged to him. Frank reached for the doorknob and froze. Through the glass panel, he saw his mother turn her head toward the door, smiling. Is that him? She asked, laughing softly. The sound broke something inside him. He twisted the handle. The door swung open. The moment Frank steps in, every head turns. Laughter dies midair. What follows isn't a reunion. It's a reckoning years in the making. The door opened with a hollow click, and every sound in the room froze. Music stopped mid-beat. Laughter hung in the air like smoke. Frank stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his jacket. His eyes locked on the people who'd stolen his victory. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then his mother gasped softly, as if he'd just ruined her perfect photo. Frank, she said, voice caught between guilt and disbelief. You weren't supposed to be here yet. He stepped inside. The warmth of the room hit him like an insult. Balloons floated above a table stacked with food he hadn't bought. A bottle of champagne sat half empty beside a cake that read, Welcome home, Logan. The scent of grilled meat and perfume clashed in the air, thick and wrong. I wasn't supposed to be here. Frank's voice came out calm, too calm. In my own house? His brother laughed awkwardly. Man, come on. It's a joke. We were just celebrating for you, sort of like, breaking it in before you move in. Frank's eyes flicked around the room. His father leaned against the counter, silent. His mother twisted her wedding ring. Logan's wife avoided his stare, pretending to adjust the decorations. Nobody said sorry. Nobody even looked ashamed. Frank walked farther in. Each step made the floorboards creak, his floorboards. You know I haven't even moved in yet, he said, his voice low. You walked in before I did. Logan shrugged, the same lazy grin he'd worn since they were kids. Relax, it's family. We just wanted to surprise you. The place was empty, the key under the mat. The key wasn't under the mat. Frank's tone sharpened. It was with me. That made Logan falter for the first time. His smile cracked just a little. Then how did you get in? Frank's words hit like a hammer. He already knew the answer, but he wanted to hear it from him. Logan cleared his throat. Mom called the agent. We said you were running late. They let us in to help set up. It's not a big deal. Frank's gaze darkened. You lied, again. His mother tried to step in. Frank, please don't make this dramatic. We just wanted to make it special for you. You've been so distant. Special? Frank's voice cracked. You turned my home into a circus. You made it his celebration again. He pointed at the cake, the banner, the laughter still echoing in the air. All of it was Logan's world spilling into his. You told me I'd never make it, Frank said, looking at his father now. You told me to be realistic. You said Logan knew how to succeed. He took another step forward, his shoes leaving wet prints on the polished floor. Well, here I am, I made it. And the first thing you did was hand it over to him. No one answered. The silence cut deeper than any argument. Logan finally spoke, voice quieter now. Frank, it's just a house. Don't act like it's some holy shrine. Frank's laugh came out short and bitter. To you, it's just a house. To me, it's every night I went hungry to pay for it. Every shift I stayed late. Every damn time I proved you wrong. He stared at his brother, eyes burning. Do you have any idea what it feels like to watch you? Stand where I've never been, allowed to stand, and pretend it's yours? No one dared to move. Even the kids stood still on the stairs, sensing the storm in the room. Frank's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. Then slowly, he turned toward the living room table. He picked up the champagne bottle, still half full, and placed it back down gently. His voice dropped to a whisper that felt colder than shouting. You all need to leave. His mother's face tightened. Frank, don't. Now! He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Every word was steel. Logan's jaw clenched. You're overreacting. You think you're better than everyone now, huh? Just because you bought a house? Frank met his eyes unblinking. No, I just finally have something that's mine. And you can't take it this time. The tension cracked through the room like thunder. Logan took a step forward, chest puffed. You really want to do this here? In front of them? Frank didn't move. His reflection glared back from the dark window. Two brothers. Same blood, different battles. He spoke quietly. I've been doing this all my life. Logan stepped closer, a smirk crawling across his face. The kind that used to make Frank's blood boil when they were boys. He leaned in, lowering his voice so only Frank could hear. You think you're the only one who earned this place? You should probably check your paperwork again. Frank blinked. What are you talking about? Logan's grin widened, smug, poisonous. Oh, you didn't know? That's awkward. He turned to the rest of the room, playing to his audience. Dad, did you tell him yet, or should I? Their father shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat but saying nothing. The air thickened. The room, once full of laughter and music, now pulsed with a quiet dread. Frank's voice hardened. Tell me what? Logan tilted his head, savoring every second. That this house you're so proud of wasn't just yours. That maybe, just maybe, you didn't notice the fine print in your contract. Frank's heart thudded. You're lying. Logan shrugged. Am I? You used Mom's name as guarantor, remember? You were short on the down payment. Who do you think wired the rest? Me. The room tilted. Frank's pulse went wild, heat rising up his neck. That's not true, he said, but his voice sounded smaller than he wanted it to. I paid every cent. Logan's laugh echoed sharp through the hall. You paid most, but I closed it for you. You can check the records. It's right there. Without that last transfer, the deal would have fallen through. So technically, he raised his glass, smiling like he'd just crowned himself again. You're living in my house. Frank froze. His mind flicked through every moment of the purchase, the transfer delays, the final email from the broker saying, everything cleared, congratulations. He remembered the relief, the exhaustion, the blind trust that no one could touch this dream. But now the certainty cracked. Had he missed something? Had his brother found a way in before he even moved? His mother spoke softly. Frank, don't look at us like that. It was meant to help. You should be grateful. Logan just made sure it went through. Frank turned to her, disbelief flooding his chest. Grateful? You're telling me he owns a piece of my house and you want me to thank him? Watch your tone, his father said sternly. You needed help. He helped. Frank let out a shaky breath, trying not to scream. I didn't ask for his help. I've been doing this alone for years. Every brick in this place came from something I gave up. Logan set his glass down, leaning casually against the marble island. Don't make it so dramatic, man. It's not a betrayal. It's business. I saw you struggling to get approved. I pushed the rest through so you wouldn't lose it. Frank's hands curled into fists. You mean so you could own it? Same thing, Logan said, shrugging. We're family. That word, family, felt like poison. Frank laughed once, bitter and hollow. You keep saying that, like it excuses everything you've ever taken. Silence followed. The rain outside picked up, pattering hard against the windows. The kids on the stairs shifted nervously. Frank took a deep breath and looked at his mother. You all knew. No one answered. That was the answer. He turned, walking slowly through the house, scanning every wall, every corner, every inch that had once felt like victory now looked tainted. Fingerprints on the counters, shoe marks on the floor, a house that didn't even feel like his anymore. This is what you do, he said quietly. You wait until I build something, then you move in and rename it. Logan chuckled. Oh, come on. You're acting like I broke in with a crowbar. Frank's voice dropped low. You broke in with a signature. That made Logan's smile falter. For the first time, he saw something flicker in his brother's eyes. Maybe guilt. maybe just surprised that Frank wasn't folding this time. You want to claim ownership? Frank said, stepping closer. Then own this conversation. Own what you did. You manipulated my dream, my work, my silence. You made me small my whole life, but not anymore. His father's voice boomed from behind, trying to reclaim control. That's enough. You're embarrassing yourself. We did this for you. Frank turned to him, shaking his head. No, you did it for him. You always do. The words landed heavy, like stones breaking through glass. His father looked away. His mother whispered his name, but he didn't stop. He reached the front door, every nerve alive with anger. The sound of rain mixed with his heartbeat. You have 10 minutes, Frank said. Get out, all of you. Logan scoffed. You can't talk to us like that. I'm part owner, remember? Frank looked back at him, eyes cold as steel. Not for long. The storm outside had turned heavy enough to drown out every sound inside the house. Rain hammered the windows while Frank stood in the doorway. Unmoving, the words, not for long, still hanging in the air. Logan tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. You're bluffing. Frank didn't answer. He walked past him calm, almost detached, and reached for the small black folder he had left on the side table when he first walked in. The same folder he'd signed the day this house became his. He opened it slowly, the paper edges still crisp, and laid it flat on the counter. His mother's voice trembled. Frank, what are you doing? Something I should have done a long time ago. He flipped to the back page, tracing the printed lines with his finger until he found the one detail that had kept him awake for weeks while the deal was closing, the guarantor clause, the one his lawyer had insisted on rewriting after the first draft. Frank looked up at his brother. You said you helped me? That you wired the money? Logan straightened his shoulders. Yeah, you're welcome. Then you should have checked the transfer record, Frank said quietly. That wasn't a contribution. That was a loan. One that expired the day the sale was complete. Logan frowned. What? Frank slid another sheet forward. Proof of the amendment his lawyer had filed. It listed Frank Delarose, sole proprietor, in thick bold text, and beneath it a clause. Third-party guarantees are void. Upon title transfer, unless formal, partnership is declared within 7 days of closure. It's been 3 months, Frank said. The words landed like thunder. His father's face drained of color. How did you? I read what I was signing, Frank said. For once. Logan's hand twitched toward the document as if he could erase it by touch. This isn't possible. You can't. I can, Frank interrupted softly. And I did. Every cent you sent was recorded as temporary collateral. The bank released it. You don't own a brick. The room went silent except for the ticking of the kitchen clock and the hiss of rain against glass. His mother sank into a chair, whispering, We only wanted to help you. Frank turned toward her. Help would have been believing I could do it myself. He gathered the papers back into the folder, sealing them like evidence. His voice stayed steady, stripped of anger now, replaced by something colder, clarity. For 30 years you taught me that silence keeps peace. Tonight I learned that silence just signs away your name. Logan tried one last smile, but it broke halfway. You think you're better than us now? No, Frank said. I just finally stopped being less. He walked to the front door and opened it. Wind and rain swept in, flattening the banner, extinguishing the candles on the table one by one. You don't have to apologize, he said quietly. Just leave before the police arrive. They're already on their way. His father looked like he wanted to argue, but the weight in Frank's tone ended it. One by one they filed out, their laughter gone, their confidence dripping away with the rain. When the door finally closed, the silence that followed was different. Not empty, clean. Frank set the folder down on the kitchen counter and exhaled for the first time all night. He walked through the room slowly, touching the walls, the banister, the window frames. Everything looked smaller now, but also real, finally his. Outside, the police lights flickered across the driveway, blue and distant. Inside, the house stood still, waiting. Frank whispered to the quiet, You're mine again. The following morning bled into gray light and quiet rain. The kind of morning that smelled of damp earth and regret. Frank hadn't slept, not because of fear, but because his mind was too sharp now, cutting through every piece of the puzzle. The message on his phone still glowed faintly on the table. You don't know what they're capable of. He'd stared at those words for hours, trying to decide whether they were a warning or a threat. The house was silent except for the low hum of the security system he'd reprogrammed himself. Every camera now fed directly into his laptop. No blind spots, no interference. He'd also backed up all legal documents, deeds, and recorded calls into 3 different drives. Frank had learned the hard way that trust wasn't protection, preparation was. He stood by the large window facing the lake, coffee cooling in his hand, watching ripples distort the reflection of his home. For the first time, he saw it clearly, the cost of fighting to own something that symbolized freedom. It wasn't the walls or the land. It was what he'd built out of the broken pieces they left him. The sound of tires crunching on wet gravel snapped him out of thought. Through the glass, he saw a car slowly pull up to the gate. His jaw tightened. It was Alder's SUV. Of course it was. The same silver one he used to drive past Frank's apartment years ago without even glancing up. Only this time, Alder wasn't arriving like a conqueror. He was hesitant, shoulders tight, as if the weight of what he'd done finally caught up. Frank didn't move. He let Alder step out, umbrella trembling slightly in his grip. Seconds later, the intercom buzzed. "Frank, please. We need to talk." The voice cracked, desperate. Frank's reply was even, cold. "You've said enough." But Alder kept talking, rain pounding against his words. "It wasn't supposed to go that far. Mom said. She said you wouldn't mind if we just celebrated. Lyra wanted to surprise you, that's all." "I didn't know." Frank cut him off with silence, letting the lie hang there. Then he pressed the speaker button once more, his tone cutting through like glass. "Did Mom also tell you to forge my signature on the loan agreement? Or was that your surprise too?" The line went dead quiet. Through the window, Alder froze, his expression twisting, guilt, panic, then defeat. Frank didn't blink. He had spent too many years shrinking for their comfort. Not anymore. He opened the gate remotely, not out of mercy, but to finish this on his own terms. Alder walked up the path slowly, like a man approaching judgment. Inside, the warmth of the house made his soaked clothes look pitiful. He tried to speak again, but Frank's hand went up. "You don't get to explain. Not until I finish." Frank walked him through the living room, the same one Alder had claimed as his throne days ago. The smell of fresh paint still lingered, but the laughter was gone, replaced by tension thick enough to choke on. "I know you filed a duplicate title request," Frank said quietly. "I know you tried to move my down payment into your account. And I know Mom helped you do it because she said, I didn't need a house, I needed family. You all made sure I'd have neither." Alder's eyes widened. "How did you—" "I watched," Frank said simply. "Every move, every lie." He clicked a key on his laptop, and a video began to play. Alder and Lyra at the kitchen counter, talking about convincing the agent to adjust names. The color drained from Alder's face. "This footage is already in 3 different places," Frank said. "Police, lawyer, and state property records. I didn't call them yet. Not because you deserve grace, but because I do. I needed to hear the apology before the law heard your excuse." Alder sank onto the couch, head in hands. For the first time, Frank didn't feel rage. He felt release. The years of silence, humiliation, being called unrealistic, all of it peeled away. The storm outside grew louder, rattling the windows as if echoing the chaos between them. Alder whispered, "You're really going to destroy us?" Frank looked at him. "No," he said. "You already did that yourselves. I'm just not cleaning up your mess anymore." Then he handed Alder a folded paper, a copy of the police report, unsigned. "You can walk out that door, and I'll pretend I never saw you here. But if you or anyone else touches this house again, you won't be walking back in." Alder's lip trembled. He looked around as if the house itself was judging him. "You changed, Frank." Frank gave a hollow smile. "No, I just stopped shrinking." Alder left without another word. The door closed behind him with a thud that echoed through every room. The sound of finality. The rain outside softened to a drizzle, and the light through the window shifted, faint, but new. Frank sat down on the same couch his brother had used days before, but this time it felt different. The air was his again. The silence belonged to him. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he was defending something. He felt like he'd reclaimed it. But as he leaned back, his phone buzzed again. One new message. Unknown number. It read, "You think it's over? Check your basement." Frank's pulse stilled. His eyes darted toward the hallway that led to the locked door beneath the stairs, the one the contractor had sealed until renovations were done. He rose slowly, because whatever waited behind that door, it wasn't over yet. The text glared back at him in the glow of the kitchen light. "Check your basement." For a few seconds, Frank just stared, unmoving, expression unreadable. He could hear the rain easing outside. That soft hush after a storm when everything feels too still, too quiet. But that message, it broke the silence like a whisper from the walls themselves. He rose slowly, the floor creaking beneath his steps. His reflection followed him across the hallway mirror, eyes shadowed but sharp. The contractor had sealed the basement door weeks ago. No one was supposed to go down there yet, so how did someone even know there was something to check? He pulled the ring of spare keys from the drawer, the cold metal pressing against his palm. His heart didn't race, not anymore. Fear was something he'd already burned out of himself long ago. What he felt now was clarity, the kind that only comes after you've lost everything and realized you can still stand. The lock clicked. The door opened with a reluctant sigh, the kind that old wood makes when it's been waiting too long. A faint smell drifted up, dust, varnish, and something old, something trapped. The light at the top of the stairs flickered once, then steadied. He stepped down. Each step groaned beneath his weight, echoing like the heartbeat of the house. When he reached the bottom, the air shifted, colder, denser, like stepping into memory itself. The basement wasn't bare. In the far corner were boxes, dozens of them. Some marked in black ink, others newer. The handwriting stopped him cold, his mother's cursive, his brother's blocky scrawl. He recognized every loop, every letter. He knelt beside the nearest one, peeled away the tape. Inside were fragments of a life he'd left behind. Old bank slips, letters from college, half-finished drawings, photos of him standing alone at birthdays while Alder smiled in the foreground. Every scrap of paper felt like a fingerprint of how they'd measured his worth. Quietly, constantly without permission, he opened another box. Inside were loan applications, notarized papers, signatures forged with such precision it made his skin crawl. Beneath those, a small black recorder. He pressed play. He'll never know, Alder's voice said. The house will be ours before he even steps inside. A woman's voice followed, soft, rehearsed, familiar. He'll forgive us. He always does. His mother. Frank didn't breathe. The static hummed through the silence until the tape clicked off. For a long moment he stayed still, one hand gripping the edge of a box, the other trembling just slightly. All those years of being told he overreacted, that he was dramatic, ungrateful, and now the proof sat right there on the concrete floor. He gathered the boxes, the recorder, the documents, arms full of ghosts, and climbed the stairs. Outside, thunder rolled one last time, a faint warning fading across the lake. Back in the kitchen, he spread everything across the counter, the old and the new, the lies and the evidence. He could almost hear his father's voice in the back of his head. Let it go. Frank, family is all you've got. But family, he realized, wasn't supposed to break you to see if you'd rebuild yourself smaller. He opened his laptop. Every camera feed was live, every angle under his control. He began scanning each document, one by one, file by file. No words, no hesitation, just quiet precision. The way he'd worked through every late night that led him here. Once the files were uploaded, he wrote the email. His fingers didn't stop once. To Property Fraud Division, Cedar County. CC, State Attorney. Subject, proof of forgery, Drexler family estate case. Attachments loaded, evidence sealed. He hit send. For a long second, nothing happened. Then a soft tone confirmed it. Message delivered. And just like that, it was done. Frank exhaled slowly, closing the laptop. The house around him seemed to breathe too. The walls no longer humming with secrets, but with silence, calm and earned. He looked out the window toward the lake. Lightning flickered once, far away now, just a memory. When dawn came, it brought headlights up the drive. The same neighbor who'd first warned him stood outside his gate, watching as two black cars rolled to a stop. The officers stepped out, papers in hand, badges catching the morning light. Frank met them at the door, no fear in his voice. No bitterness, just quiet readiness. By noon it was over. Alder's car was towed. Lyra's face was pale, her eyes darting everywhere except at Frank. Their mother stood silent, clutching her coat like it could hold back the truth. The officers spoke briefly, nodding at Frank before driving away with the evidence secured. The family didn't speak. They didn't need to. Every unspoken thing between them was now written down, stamped, filed, and signed. When the gate closed behind them, the house went still again. No footsteps, no laughter that wasn't his. Just peace, the kind that hums in the air after justice has passed through. Frank sat by the large window. the same one where he'd once watched them celebrating in his living room. The reflection that stared back at him wasn't tired anymore. It was steady, whole. On the counter, his phone buzzed one last time. An unknown number. He hesitated, then read it. "You did it, Frank. You finally took back what was always yours." "Check the news." He turned on the small TV above the counter. The news anchor's voice was brisk, breaking through static. "Authorities have uncovered a wider forgery network involving multiple estates under Cedar Lake Realty. Evidence submitted anonymously led to several arrests this morning, including known associates of—" Frank smiled faintly. The camera on the broadcast cut to police. Vehicles outside a familiar office. Building, his family's broker's office. The circle was complete. He didn't gloat. He didn't even speak. He just turned off the TV and let the quiet fill the room. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The air was clean, sharp with pine and promise. The light from the lake stretched across his living room, glinting against the marble counters they'd once claimed as their own. He stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand, breathing in deeply. For the first time, the house didn't feel heavy with history. It felt alive, like it had finally chosen its rightful owner. Somewhere behind him, the grandfather clock ticked softly, steady, unbroken. He looked out across the calm water, whispering to himself, "Let them keep the past. I'll keep what I built." The wind shifted gently, carrying the scent of cedar through the air. And for the first time in years, Frank felt weightless. The house was his. The peace was his. And for once, the silence was on his side.